As Mia dusted the desk, her rag snagged on a drawer, slightly open. She froze. Inside was an envelope, and inside that envelope was explosive information. Ethan Lawrence's girlfriend was plotting to bring him down. Mia warned him, but what happened next shocked everyone. She approached him, revealing the truth, and the next day, she was fired. Sit tight, because you're about to hear a shocking story of betrayal, secrets, and revenge. Watch till the end, and don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Rain whispered against the glass like a secret. The Loron mansion loomed above the cliffs of Mirabel Bay, its windows glowing faintly through the storm. Inside, chandeliers burned with golden light, crystal droplets flickering as thunder rolled in the distance. Mia adjusted her apron and took a deep breath before entering the study. She had cleaned this room countless times, dusting the grand oak desk, polishing the brass fixtures, aligning the books by color and spine. But tonight, something felt different. The air was heavy, charged with a stillness that made her heart quicken. Mr. Ethan Loron had just left for a business dinner with his girlfriend, Isabella Kane, the glamorous heiress who had appeared in his life barely 6 months ago. Since her arrival, the mansion had changed. The staff spoke in whispers now, laughter had become rare, and every order came wrapped in tension. Mia had been a maid long enough to recognize when something was wrong in a house. The silence told her everything words did not. As she dusted the desk, her rag caught on the edge of a drawer, left slightly open. She froze. Mr. Loron was meticulous. He never left things out of place. Inside the drawer was a stack of neatly arranged envelopes, one of them slightly torn at the seal. Her conscience battled her curiosity, but instinct won. Something about that half-open letter tugged at her, like fate whispering her name. She hesitated for only a second before pulling it out. The letter was written in elegant cursive, the scent of expensive perfume lingering faintly on the paper. The first line made her knees weaken. When the merger is finalized, Ethan's assets will transfer automatically. He won't suspect a thing. Mia's pulse thundered in her ears. She read the next line, her lips parting as realization crashed through her like cold water. Once the money is secured, we leave for Zurich. You and I will finally be free, Richard. Richard, the CEO of Westmont Holdings, Ethan Lawrence's rival and former best friend. Mia's hand trembled. The letter was signed. Isabella Kane. Her eyes blurred. Could this be real? Could Isabella, the woman who seemed so devoted, so charming, be planning to destroy the man who trusted her? For a long moment, she stood frozen in the flickering lamplight, the letter shaking in her grasp. She knew what would happen if anyone found her here, snooping through her employer's private things. But she also knew what would happen if she stayed silent. She remembered her father, a security guard who had once discovered corruption at the company he worked for. When he tried to warn his boss, they called him a liar. He died unemployed, with no one to defend him. Mia had promised herself she would never look away from the truth again, no matter the cost. That promise burned in her chest now. By the time Ethan returned, the rain had turned into a downpour. His tailored suit was damp around the shoulders, and the storm outside seemed to echo in his eyes. He was tall, with a quiet authority that made people instinctively lower their voices around him. To the world, he was a billionaire genius, self-made, brilliant, untouchable. But to the staff, he was more human than his wealth suggested. He remembered birthdays. He thanked them by name. Mia stood waiting in the hallway, the letter clutched to her chest like a confession. "Mr. Loron," she said, her voice barely steady. He turned, surprised to see her at this hour. "Mia, is something wrong?" She swallowed. "Sir, I found something. In your study. I shouldn't have, but I think you need to see it." She handed him the letter. His gaze dropped to the paper, scanning it in silence. With every line, the warmth faded from his expression. When he finally looked up, there was something cold and unreadable in his eyes, like a man calculating a truth too painful to ignore. "Where did you find this?" he asked quietly. "In the drawer, sir. It was already open." "I swear I wasn't." "I believe you." The simple words startled her. He turned toward the window, staring out at the sheets of rain slashing the glass. For a long time, he said nothing. Then, softly, "Do you understand what this means?" Mia nodded. She's planning to take everything. You have to. He raised a hand. No one must know about this. Not yet. Do you understand me? She hesitated. But sir, if she realizes you've seen... I'll handle Isabella, he interrupted, voice calm but laced with something sharp. You've done the right thing, Mia. I won't forget this. The look in his eyes sent a chill through her, not anger, not shock, but something colder, strategy. When she left him that night, she couldn't shake the feeling that the mansion itself was holding its breath. The next morning, the air was different. Too still. Mia walked into the staff kitchen to find everyone whispering. The housekeeper, an older woman named Mrs. Parson, lowered her voice when Mia entered. You'd better stay out of sight today, she warned softly. Isabella's in one of her moods. Why? Mia asked. Mrs. Parson hesitated. There's talk that someone's been spreading lies about her. She's furious. Said she'll have whoever it is fired by noon. Mia's blood ran cold. She tried to focus on her work, scrubbing floors, polishing mirrors, but every reflection seemed to stare back accusingly. When she passed Isabella in the corridor, the woman's perfume filled the air like poison wrapped in roses. Isabella stopped her. You're Mia, right? Mia nodded, unable to speak. The woman's smile was all surface, polished, perfect. I just want you to know that loyalty is rewarded in this house. And betrayal, she leaned closer, voice dropping to a whisper, doesn't end well. Her heels clicked away down the hall, leaving Mia frozen in her wake. That evening, she was called into the study again, but this time, it wasn't Ethan waiting. It was the head of security. Mia Delane, the man said curtly. Mr. Lawrence orders. You're being dismissed immediately. She stared at him, disbelief breaking through her fear. Dismissed? Why? What did I? He handed her an envelope. You're accused of stealing confidential documents. Pack your things. Her heart shattered. Isabella had moved faster than she imagined. As she left the mansion, rain pouring down again, she turned back once. Through the tall windows, she saw Ethan standing by the fire, his face hidden in shadow. He didn't look up. The thunder drowned her tears. What Mia didn't know, what no one yet knew, was that Ethan Laurent had already set his plan in motion. The storm that had begun with a letter would soon consume them all. Isabella Kane had never believed in luck. She believed in strategy, in charm, in precision. Every move she made was deliberate, from the way she tilted her head when she laughed to the expensive simplicity of her white silk dresses. She was beauty packaged as innocence, ambition disguised as devotion. To the world, she was the billionaire's perfect partner. To herself, she was the architect of her own escape. She hadn't grown up with wealth. Her childhood was a patchwork of unpaid bills, her mother's tired eyes, and men who made promises they never kept. Isabella had decided early that she would never beg for stability, she would take it. Whatever it cost. Ethan Laurent was supposed to be her masterpiece. The plan had been elegant. Charm him. Secure his trust. Guide the merger between Laurent Industries and Westmont Holdings, and once the paperwork shifted his assets into joint accounts, vanish. No traces. No remorse. It was perfect, until that maid interfered. The morning after Mia's dismissal, Isabella stood on the balcony of the master suite, coffee steaming in her hand, staring out at the ocean below. Her reflection in the glass was flawless, but her thoughts were sharp and restless. She hadn't slept. Something about Ethan's reaction last night unsettled her. He'd been quiet, too quiet. No confrontation, no anger, no suspicion. Just silence. She took a sip of coffee and turned as Ethan entered, freshly dressed, calm as always. "You're up early," he said. "So are you." She smiled sweetly, walking over to adjust his tie. "Everything okay?" "Everything's fine." He said it smoothly, but Isabella's instincts caught the faintest shift, the kind of subtle distance that meant something had changed. "You seemed distracted at dinner last night," she said casually, studying him. "Something on your mind?" He smiled faintly. "Just business. The merger's coming up." She laughed lightly, pretending to relax. "Don't worry about that, darling. You've got me to help you through it." He met her gaze for a moment too long. "I know. By midday, the staff were gone from the main hall, their whispers following Mia's sudden disappearance. Isabella felt the tension lift, slightly. Still, she couldn't shake the unease. She made her way to Ethan's private office, opening the door without knocking. He was on a call, his back turned to her. "Yes, make sure the Zurich transfer is delayed until after the audit," he said into the phone. "I don't want any movement for 72 hours. Isabella froze. Zurich. He never mentioned Zurich before. He turned as she entered, covering the receiver. "Can I help you?" She smiled quickly. "Didn't mean to interrupt. Just wanted to bring you lunch." His gaze lingered on her, then he nodded and ended the call. "You didn't have to. I like taking care of you," she said, setting the tray down. Fresh salad, mineral water, perfect presentation. She had learned long ago that power often trusted what looked like love. But Ethan only nodded absently, his eyes drifting to the papers on his desk. There was a calm calculation in his silence that made her skin prickle. She left the room smiling, but inside, her mind raced. He knew something. That night, she met Richard in the black Mercedes parked near the cliffs, the waves below crashing against the rocks like distant applause. The rain had finally stopped, and the air smelled of wet earth and salt. Richard was older, silver-haired, impeccably dressed, with the kind of confidence that came from decades of manipulating boardrooms. "You're late," he said, checking his watch. "I had to be careful. Ethan's been watching me differently." Richard frowned. "He suspects." "I'm not sure," she admitted. "But the maid found one of our letters." His face darkened. "You told me you destroyed them all." "I did," she said quickly. "Except one. I must have left it in the study." He swore under his breath. "You're getting careless, Isabella. This isn't just about money. If he connects the dots, it'll be both of us on the front page." "I'll fix it," she said, gripping his arm. "I always do." Richard stared at her, then sighed. "You'd better. Because if this goes wrong, I won't take the fall for you." She watched him drive off into the darkness, the red taillights fading like burning embers. For the first time, a crack of doubt spread through her confidence. Maybe she had underestimated Ethan Laurent. The next morning, Ethan surprised her with a proposal, not the romantic kind, but something better, a private dinner to celebrate their future. He booked the finest restaurant in the city, shutting down the entire rooftop for them. Candles flickered in the breeze, the skyline glittering around them like a field of stars. "Ethan, this is beautiful," she said, genuinely taken aback. He smiled faintly. "I wanted to thank you for believing in me." The sincerity in his tone almost made her forget her lines. For a moment, the woman she pretended to be, the loving, loyal Isabella, almost felt real. They talked over dinner, laughing about things that didn't matter. Yet behind her laughter, she searched his face for signs of knowledge. He was impossible to read. Then came the moment that chilled her. "I've been thinking about Zurich," he said lightly, sipping his wine. "Maybe we should go there. Together. After the merger." Her heart skipped. "Zurich." He nodded. "You once mentioned you loved Switzerland." "I didn't I?" she said, forcing a smile. "Yes. You said it was the perfect place to disappear." The wine glass nearly slipped from her hand. Ethan's gaze held hers steadily, almost gently. Then he smiled again, warm and charming, but she saw it now. Behind that smile was something dangerous. When the evening ended, she could barely breathe. He knew. Back at the mansion, she paced the bedroom, her reflection fractured in the mirror. She could leave tonight. Take what she could, vanish before sunrise. But something stopped her, pride, maybe. Or the refusal to lose the game she started. She pulled out her phone, calling Richard again. "We move tomorrow," she said, voice cold. "No delays. I'll get the authorization codes before he can stop us." "Are you sure?" "I'm done waiting." She hung up and stood there in the silence, staring out the window at the sea. Below, the waves crashed endlessly against the rocks, patient, relentless, inevitable. And in the dark, she didn't see the small, glinting camera lens hidden behind the curtain, recording every word. Ethan Laurent had learned long ago that trust was a currency too easily counterfeited. He wasn't just waiting for her to fall. He was building the trap she wouldn't see until it was too late. Ethan hadn't slept. He sat in his study, the faint glow of his desk lamp illuminating a series of documents, bank statements, and encrypted messages. Every detail, every trail Isabella had left, was being pieced together. His jaw tightened as he scrolled through the security footage, a grainy image of her phone pressed to her ear, the words, "We move tomorrow," caught clearly on the audio. Tomorrow. That was today. He leaned back in his chair, exhaustion creeping in, but beneath it all, there was a grim satisfaction. He had given her every opportunity to come clean. She'd chosen greed instead. Ethan Laurent wasn't known for vengeance. But betrayal, especially from someone he had allowed into his heart, demanded justice. And this time, justice would be personal. Downstairs, the mansion buzzed with a quiet unease. The staff worked in near silence, moving cautiously, uncertain how to behave after Mia's abrupt dismissal. It was as if the house itself could sense a storm coming. In the kitchen, Mrs. Parson crossed herself as she saw Ethan walk past. "He's got that look again," she whispered to another maid. "The one he had when his father's company collapsed. Cold as winter." Upstairs, Isabella stood before the mirror, applying lipstick the color of fresh blood. She looked perfect, radiant even, but her reflection betrayed the tremor in her hand. "Steady," she whispered to herself. "You've done harder things." She slipped her phone into her clutch, glancing once more at the handwritten note she'd prepared, a forged authorization letter granting her full control over Ethan's offshore accounts for emergency fund management. Her handwriting mimicked his assistant's perfectly. By the time she reached the car, her mask was firmly in place again, the loving partner, the supportive girlfriend, the woman who could do no wrong. Ethan met her in the foyer, dressed impeccably in a charcoal suit. His expression was unreadable, the kind of calm that comes before something irrevocable. "You look beautiful," he said. "Thank you." She smiled. "Big day today." He nodded. "Very. The auditors are finalizing the merger documents. I'll be heading into the city soon." "Do you want me to come?" she asked sweetly. "Not today," he said, meeting her gaze. "There's something else I need you to handle." She tilted her head, feigning curiosity. "What's that?" He handed her a sealed envelope. "These are the financial summaries for Zurich. I need them delivered to the secondary account manager. Personally." Her pulse quickened. Zurich. He was handing her the key she needed, willingly. Was it a test? Or a mistake? "I can do that," she said, smiling just enough to hide her triumph. He leaned forward, kissed her cheek. "I knew I could count on you." By noon, Isabella was seated in the back of the Mercedes, the envelope resting on her lap. The drive to the city was long and winding, but her mind was already on the numbers. Once she reached the Zurich account terminal, she'd make the transfer, a silent, elegant theft. No police. No confrontation. Just a vanishing act. Halfway there, she received a text from Richard. "Everything ready. Proceed. After transaction, go directly to Terminal 3. Tickets waiting." She smiled. It was happening. Years of careful planning were about to pay off. But what she didn't see, what she couldn't see, was that Ethan had already intercepted the message before it reached her phone. Every word she received was being mirrored to his private system. Every step she took was already mapped. Back at the mansion, Ethan stood before the massive window overlooking the sea, his phone pressed to his ear. "Detective Hale," he said quietly. "She's on her way. Zurich transfer authorization will occur within the hour. Make sure the Interpol team is ready. And no one moves until she initiates." "Yes, Mr. Laurent. We'll take it from there." He hung up, exhaling slowly. His gaze drifted to the empty hallway, the one that used to echo with Mia's careful footsteps. A pang of regret struck him. He'd had to let her take the fall, to make the setup look real. But he'd never forget her courage. Without her warning, he might have lost everything, not just money, but faith itself. He looked down at his desk where her employment file lay open. On top of it sat a deed, the one he'd signed in her name. "For your honesty. For your courage." A quiet smile touched his lips. "You'll understand one day," he murmured. Meanwhile, Isabella entered the Loron Investments branch under her usual charm, polite nods, effortless grace. The employees greeted her warmly. To them, she was the future Mrs. Loron. No one questioned her authority. She presented the forged authorization letter with a disarming smile. Mr. Loron asked me to handle this personally. He's preparing for a surprise audit. The manager nodded, unbothered. Of course, Ms. Kane. We'll connect you to the Zurich terminal immediately. She sat at the private desk, heart pounding as she typed in the transfer commands. Her fingers danced across the keyboard, entering passwords, bypassing restrictions. She knew these systems better than most. She'd studied them for months. Within minutes, the transaction began. $127 million was set to move from Ethan's primary account to a new one, hers. She watched the numbers flicker. Her breath came shallow, her chest tightening with exhilaration. It was done. Until the screen blinked red. Transfer denied. Authorization flagged for investigation. Her blood ran cold. The bank manager frowned. That's strange. Before she could respond, the door opened. Two men in dark suits entered, followed by a third wearing a police badge. Ms. Isabella Kane, the officer said. We need to speak with you about financial misconduct and attempted embezzlement. She froze. There must be a mistake. There isn't, came a familiar voice from behind them. Ethan stepped into the room, calm, composed, eyes like ice. For a long moment, no one spoke. Ethan, she whispered. I can explain. He held up a hand. No. You can't. Her eyes filled with fury and disbelief. You set me up. I gave you a choice, he said quietly. You made the wrong one. As the officer stepped forward, she lunged toward him, her voice trembling with rage. You think you've won? You're just like the rest of them, hiding behind money, behind control. He met her gaze steadily. No. I just don't mistake love for leverage. They led her away, her cries echoing down the marble halls. And as the doors closed behind her, Ethan felt something unexpected. Not victory, not relief, but sorrow. That evening, the mansion was silent again. The storm had passed, but its echoes lingered. Ethan stood by the fire, staring into the flames. The truth was that part of him had loved Isabella, or at least, the illusion of her. He'd wanted to believe in redemption, in the idea that people could change. But some people didn't want saving. When he turned, a knock startled him. Mrs. Parsons stood in the doorway, hesitant. Sir, there's someone at the gate, she said softly. It's Mia. Ethan's chest tightened. Let her in. As the door opened and the cold night air drifted in, Mia stepped inside, cautious, uncertain, her eyes full of questions. He smiled faintly. You were right. She looked at him, disbelief flickering into relief. You knew. I did. And I owe you more than I can say. For the first time in days, he felt something like peace. Outside, the sea roared against the cliffs, wild, eternal, and free. The two stood in silence for a while, the sound of the waves filling the space between them. Then Ethan reached into his jacket and handed her a folded document. This belongs to you, he said. She frowned, unfolding it, and gasped. This is a deed. To a small house in town, he said. You told me once you wanted to start a cleaning service of your own. Consider it your first office. A new beginning. Tears stung her eyes. Mr. Loron. Ethan, he corrected gently. You earned it, Mia. You reminded me that trust isn't weakness. It's a choice, one I forgot how to make. She tried to speak, but her voice caught. All she managed was a whispered, thank you. He smiled, the kind that carried both gratitude and farewell. No, Mia. Thank you. As she walked away from the mansion that had once been a cage of secrets, she glanced back one last time. Ethan stood by the window, watching her go, a silhouette against the setting sun. Neither of them knew where life would take them next, but both carried something precious from the wreckage, truth. And truth, unlike fortune or fame, was something no one could steal. The wind lifted her hair as she reached the gate, and for the first time in a long time, Mia Delane felt free. Wow, what a ride! If this story kept you on the edge of your seat, Make sure to like and share it with your friends. Drop a comment below telling us what you think Mia should do next, and don't forget to subscribe for more shocking tales of secrets, betrayal, and unexpected twists. Stay tuned, the next story might be even crazier.